last one.
Yep, you were doing a puppet show on the last one. All right, tell them bye. Say see you next week.
I want us to have
see you next week.
Go to Walmart.com and then you can get this.
Okay, go to Walmart.com and they can get the Reese cups.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's 30
Okay,
something.
go.
There's 40 something.
Go.
40 something.
Say bye.
46.
All right, this is round 2. We had it recorded or streaming or whatever we're doing, and there was no sound. So basically, you all would have just saw my lips moving for 25 minutes. So we are doing round 2. That's what Austin was telling you about. He was eating a Reese cup, and he said, if you want one, go to Walmart. And he actually said Walmart.com, but they're on sale at Walmart. So that's what he was telling you, is that he's eating his Reese cup, and he's telling you that we did a puppet show on the last one. So, just in case y'all didn't know, I need to go to Walmart. Today, we're talking about Achan. Achan is caught red-handed. And how many times have we been in a situation where we've been caught red-handed? We can't lie. We can't get out of it. You're just caught. There's no way around it. You're just caught. Our story today is Joshua 6:18 through 24 and chapter 7, 1 through 26. So all this centers around Joshua. And that's the only place we hear about Achan. Joshua 7:1 tells us Achan is from the tribe of Judah, and that his name means one who troubles. Now, how fitting is that? Because we're going to get into this, the story, the account, the narrative, whatever you want to call it, of Achan. But it's the one who gets in trouble. He's the one who causes the trouble. And all this is happening after Jericho. And we all know the walls of Jericho came tumbling down. The Israelites marched around it quietly, one time a day for 6 days. The 7th day, they walked around it 7 times, blew trumpets, yelled, screamed, made a bunch of noise, and the walls came tumbling down. So this is when the walls came tumbling down, God gave them the city of Jericho. They were supposed to go in. They were supposed to gather the silver, the gold, the bronze, the iron, and all that they could find. That's the only things they're supposed to pick up. Gold, silver, bronze, and iron, and take them to the Lord's treasury. That's their whole job. That's what they were supposed to do. The city's destroyed. The wall came tumbling down. We're going to go in and take their stuff. God's handing it over to them. It goes into God's treasury. Well, here comes Achan. Achan's part of these Israelites. He's part of the ones supposed to be picking up the bronze, the silver, the gold, and the iron. Well, he decides it looks really good, that maybe God has too much. Maybe they've got enough for God. God wouldn't miss a few pieces. So he takes it home. He buries it under the floor of his home. Now, back then, their home floors were dirt. So basically, he dug a hole, put some dirt over it, put his items in it, and they were walking on it, sleeping on it. You know, their homes. They weren't that big. That's where he did their items. He goes back. Everything is fine. So he thinks. Then the Israelites had to fight a battle at Ai. They lost. God was not with them. They lost 36 soldiers that day. The people are crying. Why did you bring us out here to die? Why are you doing this? We did all this for God and he just left us. He's not on our side. He handed us over to the people of Ai, and we've lost. We've lost 36 of our best men. What are we going to do? So Joshua goes to God and says, why did you do this? And we see in Joshua 7:11 that God tells Joshua that someone had taken some things that belonged to him, belonged to God himself, and put it among their own stuff. And God refused to be with them until this was solved. So that put Joshua in a situation. So Joshua goes back and he lines everybody up. He goes household to household. He goes through their belongings. He asks them, hey, there's stuff missing that belongs to God. Did you all take it? Where is it? Do you know who took it? And Achan knows, as Joshua is going down this line, that he's getting closer and closer to his house, getting closer and closer to Achan. Achan has a choice to make. Is he going to confess? Is he going to lie? What is he going to do? Well, Joshua gets to Achan. Achan admits it. Yes. He said, I took it. And he said it's buried under the floor. And he told him exactly what he took, where he buried it, how much was there. So Joshua sent messengers to Achan's house. And lo and behold, there it was. Exactly where Achan said it was going to be. They come back and tell Joshua, yes, the stuff that Achan took is under there. Well, Joshua's punishment then to Achan was you be stoned to death. We know that Achan was stoned to death. As for his family, we don't know. I did not research it. I could not find it. I didn't dive into it as much as I should have. But there are two theories. There's one theory that Achan's family was stoned to death with him because they had to have known about it. Since the stuff was hitting in their house and Achan brought it to their house, they think that everybody in Achan's family, Achan's household, must have known something about it, so therefore they were stoned as well. The second theory is the family had to sit there and watch Achan die. Watch him be stoned to death. Go through that agonizing, painful, slow death. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't research it. I don't know. I need to look through it, but I don't know. And I don't know if there really is an answer. I don't know if it will ever tell us what happened to Achan's family. But Achan's one sin, his one sin, is the only, we're not told anything else about Achan. So we don't know if he had other sins. We don't know if he was a bad guy or not. We do know he was part of the Israelites. We do know he was part of the ones wandering around. But this one sin, it only takes one sin to destroy your life. And this was Achan's one sin. And at the time, I guarantee you, he did not realize that if I take these few things, God's not going to miss these few things, that it was going to destroy his life, that it was going to end his life. So there are 4 things that we can learn from Achan. Achan's one mistake. Achan getting caught red-handed. We can learn 4 things. The first thing is never underestimate the amount of damage one person's sin can cause. Let's look at Achan. It affected 3 people. Obviously, it affected Achan because he got caught. And it affected the whole Israelite nation because what happened? God left them, so they got defeated in the Battle of Ai. They lost. People got killed. God was not on their side. So it affected all of the Israelites altogether. Sin affects people other than the sinner. And also, again, that goes into Achan's family. Did it just affect Achan? Was Achan the only one who died? We know for sure Achan died. But the rest of his family, if they didn't die, they had to watch it. They lost their dad. They lost their husband. They lost their grandfather. The list goes on and on and on. His sin affected so much more than just him. Sin affects people other than just the sinner. 3 things that she mentions in the book. One is gossiping. Gossiping ruins reputations. Why? Gossiping doesn't just affect me. It affects the person I'm talking about. It affects that person's family. It may affect that person's workplace. It may affect that person's sorry. It may affect that person's family, workplace, church family. One sin, gossip, can ruin a person's reputation. Families are torn apart about affairs. How many times does a husband or a wife have an extramarital affair or goes out and does something they shouldn't do to their spouse or against their spouse, and they think, oh, it just affects me? Well, no, it affects your spouse. If you have kids, it affects your kids. If you have kids, it affects, their friends, their lives. It affects the parents, the grandparents, the family. It affects more than just you. What about when parents argue? I've noticed this with my kids. When you argue or when you raise your voice or if you yell or if you're in a violent relationship, I have not witnessed that part, but I have heard stories of people who have. What happens? As soon as those voices raise, what happens? The kids run, or the kids cover their ears, or the kids yell stop. The kids don't like it. They hunker down like they're scared. They go run into a room. I never will forget, I was babysitting one time, and the house got loud. Let's just leave it at that. And the lady at the time, she laughed. You could visibly tell I was scared. It was nothing against me. Nothing violent was going on. There was just a very, very loud discussion. Could be taken as anger. And so I took the kids and I went outside. And I never will forget when I came back inside and they were taking me home because I wasn't able to drive at that time. A few weeks later or months later or something, it came up again. And they laughed and they said, yeah, you remember? They said, you were scared to death. And they said, what would you have done if it really would have been a fight? Or when we did argue. They said, if you thought that was arguing and that was yelling, be glad you've never been here when there really has been an argument. When we really have been mad at each other. When we really have been screaming at each other. And I will never forget that. Because at one point I was shaking. And I had more than one child I had to take care of. And we went outside and you could hear them yelling outside. And I don't do well in that environment. I don't like yelling. I don't like confrontation. I don't. It's not me. I don't stay calm and it just gets me rattled. And she thought it was funny. She said, we were just talking. She said, we were just having a discussion. And I thought in my mind, if that was just a discussion, you're right. I am glad I've never been there during an argument. I am glad I have never seen you all fight because I probably would never be back. So it does affect the kids. It does affect people around you when you're arguing. And there's so many more scenarios that could happen. But we got to realize whenever we think, oh, I'm just hurting myself. I'm not hurting anybody else. I'm just hurting myself. I mean, I've heard it about cigarettes. I can smoke. It's not hurting anybody but me. I'm not going to get into that because I'm not going to, but, you hear all these studies about secondhand smoke. I can't say anything. I was raised in a home that I had a parent who smoked. But it does affect other people. It could get to the point of, I've known some families that they've had to decide, are they going to buy cigarettes that week or put food on the table for their kids? And sadly, they chose cigarettes. So it does affect other people. Every choice we make affects somebody else. But we often hear, who cares? It only bothers me. It's only affecting me. A positive thing could be a job opportunity. Does that not affect everybody? That affects your family, that affects friends, that affects your coworkers, whether it be a move up or a move down or a move to a cross company, it affects more than just you. And that's what Achan failed to realize, is him taking these items didn't just affect him, it affected everybody. So we have to be careful of that too. The second thing is sin is never hidden from God. Achan thought he could hide his sin by burying the items. But God knew. God knew. Proverbs 15:3, the eyes of the Lord are in every place, keeping watch on the evil and the good. Numbers 32:23, be sure your sin will find you out. Tells you right there, your sin's going to find you out. One way or the other. May not be that second, may not be that moment, that month, that year, but your sin is going to find you out. So we can never hide our sin from God. We can never hide anything from God. Third, we must not linger near those things that are forbidden. Last week we talked about if you get too close to sin, you get dirty. That's what this is talking about. We must not linger near those things that are forbidden. Okay, Adam and Eve, she lingered by that tree a little bit too long, and what did it get her? Achan, he lingered about that gold, silver, bronze, and iron a little bit too long. He became greedy. He decided he would need it. It would really help his family out. It would be money for him later on, whatever was going through his mind. He lingered about a little too long, and what did it do? It cost him his life. We need to stop that sin before it starts. Stop the temptation. As soon as we start getting tempted and we know we shouldn't do it, we should back away. Just take our mind off of it. Whether it be, I think I've said this in like every devotional lately, but I've got to watch it. I'm a big Hallmark watcher. And I'm bad about turning on a Christmas movie and working around the house, leaving. It's nothing for us to have the TV on and not be sitting there watching that. And Elizabeth, I thought, okay, it's Hallmark Channel. It's clean. Didn't think nothing about the commercials. So Elizabeth comes running in and she goes, Mama, you got to turn it off. And I was like, it's Hallmark. I was like, what are you talking about? Why didn't you turn it off? And she goes, there's an ugly commercial on. And there was a commercial we don't approve of. And I've got to be careful of that. And I just didn't think about it. So she knew as soon as she saw that commercial come on, and it's two guys, and the whole commercial is centered around two guys buying flowers, kissing, all this stuff. You know, Hallmark is all the lovey-dovey commercials. Well, it's two guys. And so she came running in and she goes, Mama, it's the two guys commercial. You got to turn it off. And we did. We turned it off. That's just what we do in our house. Not saying you have to do it in your house. It's what we do in our house. So, anyway, that temptation. And I guess you could say I had a proud mom moment because she turned. She immediately left the room and she came and said, hey, we've got to change that. We can't watch that in here. Now, she could have just as easily sat there and watched it. And then the second time it comes on, it's a little bit easier to watch. The third time, it's okay. Well, I'm not going to tell Mom. She's known. I've told her 3 times. She just keeps it playing. It's okay. The 4th time, we're not going to think anything about it. The 5th time, we're looking for that commercial. The 6th time, hey, I know what that commercial is going to do. I know what those two guys are going to do. So, very, very relevant in today's age. A lot going on. When we're tempted, we have to turn. We have to stop. 4th thing, we must not rob God. This is the last thing. Achan chose to steal from God. He chose to physically steal items that went to the Lord's treasury. Do we steal from God? And when I thought about that, I'm like, oh, of course I don't. I don't physically steal from God. I don't take anything from him. I don't go into the church and take things from the church. I don't steal from God. That's Achan. None of this applies today. Well, her next few points, I'm like, well, maybe it does. Do we hold back our riches for ourselves instead of giving to the church? Do we put the church last? Do we go and make sure all of our needs are met, all of our extracurricular items are met, or whatever's met, and then, oh, well, it's Sunday, I'm at church, well, sorry, God, I just don't have any money in my wallet, so you're just not going to get anything today, I'll make it up next week. Or Saturday, we've had this money set aside, and we decide, oh, we're out somewhere and I don't have any other cash. My debit card, I left it somewhere. It's all I have. It's the money for church tomorrow. But I really want this particular item, so let me just use the money for church. I can make it up later. Or I have heard this one before. The church doesn't need it. They have plenty of money. I can use it for myself. Or I've already given my amount for this week. I don't need to go help this person who's come and asked me because they're not going to have a Thanksgiving meal. I don't need to help the person on the side of the road or the person knocking on my door that needs help. I've already done my job. Are we robbing God of our riches? And I'll get into more of that later. That's just the money part of it. But there's more of our riches that we can rob God of. Do we rob him of our time? Again, do I spend more time on the ball field? Basketball has started. So if you can't find me, go to the basketball court. That's where we'll be. Do we spend more time on the ball court? Do we spend more time watching movies? Do we spend more time going here and there and making sure everybody's getting to where they need to be? It's the holiday season. Everybody's having parades. Everybody's having get-togethers. Everybody is having holiday pictures, whatever. Do we spend all of our time on that, but we don't have time for God? We don't have time to open the Bible every day. We don't have time to go to church. This is the perfect week because guess what? I work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're off Thursday, but guess what? My house is going to be full of people on Thursday, and I've got to cook. Sunday's my only day home. I really need to clean. I need to get the laundry caught up. I need to get my house presentable for everybody coming. So I think I'm just going to skip church. God will forgive me this one time because I really need to be home. Because I've got to do this other stuff. And it's the holidays. Again, do we rob him of our time? I know I really should be doing this Bible study, but I just don't want to do it. Or I know I need to talk to this person about the Bible, but I just don't want to do it. I know I need to send that encouraging note. I know I need to send that text. I know I need to call that person. but I just don't want to. I don't have time for that right now. I don't have time to do what God wants me to do. Do we rob him of our time? Lastly, do we give him credit for the talents he gives us? Or do we take all the glory ourselves? And I thought it was kind of funny. If you listen to the sermon this morning, that's what Matt talked about. Everybody has a job. Well, Bible class, everybody has a job. Are we doing that job? And it's the same thing. We all have a talent. And he had a very good point. Our talent may not be talking to somebody about the Bible. Our talent might be cooking. Our talent might be visiting. Our talent might be giving gifts. Our talent might be teaching. Our talent might be just giving somebody a hug. A talent might be just sitting there listening to somebody. A talent might be getting together and helping somebody set up for the next meal, or running errands for the next church event, or whatever our talent is. Are we using it? And when we do use it, are we giving the glory to God? Not saying, oh, God let me do this. But are we giving God the glory? Or are we saying, I spent 5 hours on this cake. I had to go to Walmart. I spent 1.5 hours in Walmart to get these ingredients, and the ingredients were so high you would never believe how much these ingredients cost me to fix this cake. And all the people in Walmart were rude. The lines were backed up. All the checkouts were closed. You just don't know the trouble that I went through to make you this cake. But I want to let you know, I made you this cake just for you. I did this. I spent all this time. Me. Or do we just go and say, hey, I was thinking about you. I know you really like this kind of cake, and I thought I would just be nice and bring you a cake just to say, hey, we're thinking about you. That's giving God the glory. Not saying, look what I did. I had to do this, and this, and this went wrong, but I'll let you know I did this for you. Do we give God our glory? And that goes back into when I said our riches. Our riches cannot just be money. It can be time. It can be doing activities. It can be a lot of different things. But are we robbing God of his time? He died for us so we could get to heaven. Are we just coasting by? Or are we giving him our time? Are we using our talents that he gave us to use? Achan found out the hard way that the riches of this world are not worth disobedience to God. He thought that gold, bronze, silver, and iron was going to save him, to keep him, and guess what? All it did was get him killed. He lost his life over a few riches. Are we going to lose our life over a few riches? Are we an Achan? Next week, we're going to talk about Boaz. It's a pretty familiar story, but we're going to talk about him being a true gentleman and what we can learn from him, how to treat people, what to do for our fellow people. So I hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving, and I will see you all here next week.